Hello everyone, welcome. This is Pastor Roland checking in to see how you're doing. Hope you're doing better. Why do people have so many issues? Have you ever wondered? Bunny rabbits and dogs, cats, they don't have issues. They live their life in a very simple way. Why do we have issues? Well, the reason is that we're not living properly. And the reason we're not living properly is because we are externalized. It began when you were a little child. It has to do with trauma. You hear a lot about PTSD. PTSD of late. You hear a lot about it. But that's what we all suffer for. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Everyone. The whole human race. And we have Adam and Eve to thank for it. We inherit the fallen world in which we live. We inherit that. And we inherit our fallen body. And we are subject to sin. We sin compulsively. Okay? But some of us yearn for something more. Some of us have conflict over what we are compared to what we could be, and it makes us to want to search for answers and to find what we could have been, to find the ground of our being, which we fell away from. When you fall away from your ground of being, you begin to change. You begin to change. Let me see if I can explain to you. We human beings are creatures of love and truth because we're created in the image and likeness of God. And so the proper atmosphere for us, external and internal, is love and truth. Now we all know that love is a good atmosphere, whatever love is. Okay, we know that that's good for us. If it's real love, see, sometimes it's not. What we think is love is not really love, then it's not good for it. But if it's real love, we all kind of know intuitively that's good for us. That's why we're all looking for love. But we look in the wrong places. And truth we need. We need truth. Now, there's a little bit of a paradox there because in other words, if someone tells lies about you, you don't like it. If someone says negative lies about you, you don't like it. But if they say positive lies about you, they say you're a wonderful person and you're so great and so fantastic, even though it's not true. Well, you kind of like that, see, even though it's a lie. But we don't like to be unfairly criticized or unjustly criticized. We don't like that because we know it's not true. Or if you go to buy something and they say, well, this product will do such and such, and then you spend a lot of money on it, then you find out that it's not true. They were lying to you, then you don't like it. See? So, but then on the other hand, we like lies. We don't like it if people lie about us or to us, but we like lies. In other words, we like to think of ourselves as being great, even though we're not. For example, so if someone tells you how great you are, then you'll follow that person to the moon and back because they tell you how great you are, even though it's not true. See? But anyway, truth and love is what we need. That's a proper atmosphere. And of course that would be from God. He is your parent spirit. He's the one that created you. Okay? Now, you don't see a lot of Christ-like people around, although there are some. There are some. And if you saw one, you probably wouldn't even know, because it would just be like a regular person, unless you talked to them and got to know them, then you might see those good qualities. But Christ is the example of the greatest person who ever lived. He's the example of someone who remained close to love and truth, who was close to the Father, okay, and he had no will of his own other than to the Father's will. And so good flowed through him, and love flowed through him, and truth flowed through him. And he expressed the truth. See, he loved the truth, and he expressed it. So he was a perfect example of what a human being is supposed to be. One time Christ said, "Be perfect, even as my Father is perfect," or "Be perfect, even as your heavenly Father is perfect." So he told us to be perfect. So being perfect is a process of becoming, of perfecting, in love and truth. But now here's where we go wrong. We're externalized. It begins when we're little children and we react. Okay, we react to meanness, cruelty, pressure, tease. See, or someone emotionalized us, made us very emotional. We began to react. Now when you react to the outside, you begin to, see, the reaction to the outside is actually the beginning of adaptation. See, you begin to adapt. When you react to the outside, to something, with upset, for example, then that on the outside then is impinging upon your being through your upset, through your reaction, through your anger, through your resentment, through your fear. And then you're forced to adapt to it, somehow or other. Fight or flight, flight or freeze. See, move forward, move against. See, run. You see, there's just all these different. But there's also adaptation at the psychological level and at the cellular level. Your body begins to adapt. Okay? Your body begins to adapt to its new environment. See, before you were inviolate, you were innocent. Your internal environment was love and truth when you were a little child. You were the closest to God at that point. You were closer to God when you were a little child than you've ever been since. See, you were your own little person. You lived in your own world. Sure, you loved your mommy and daddy, and you loved your dog and your doggy and your friends, and you loved butterflies, and of course. But you had your own little world, your own little self. You could have grown very nicely, except that you were traumatized. The outside penetrated when people were mean or cruel or confusing, or did something to you, or were unjust, see, or yelled at you, or bullied you, or unnecessarily emotionalized you. We became very emotional. See, well, then you began to adapt to the outside. So as you adapt to the outside, now here's the thing. Here's what you have to understand. When an organism is traumatized, let's say, impinged upon by something, then there's an engram in the tissue, like a little image of the outside. Gets inside, a little image, around which then the changes develop and occur. Adaptation changes. That's why it's a stress. See, once you begin reacting to the outside, then things become a stress, and more things become stress. In other words, the more externalized you are, the more you become more suggestible, more reactive, and more things become stresses that weren't stresses before. Okay? So you become very, so then anything there can make you react, even a pollen. Even a little piece of pollen can make you react. And it's a stress. It requires energy. It requires life force. This stress of adaptation. Read Dr. Hans Selye's book about stress, the adaptation syndrome, or distress and eustress. He wrote several books. Very good. Dr. Hans Selye, S-E-L-Y-E. He was the father of stress management. So then the body begins to change around the image of the stressor. Okay, and that's why you also become suggestible. You take in the suggestion, and because you reacted to it with resentment or upset or outrage or something rather. You reacted to it, so it gets inside. Okay. And then you know what happens when a suggestion gets inside. Then you don't have any choice but to either conform to it or to fight it. So people fight the suggestion, some negative suggestion usually. They fight it and fight it and fight it. Finally, they get tired, they grow weary, and then they give in to it. But it was only a suggestion, see. But there's even more. Here's the more. Remember, it says in the Bible, that which is seen is made by that which is unseen. See, not only do you have the outside object of stress or circumstance of stress, you have a stressor. You have someone on the outside who's doing the stressing. And that image of that person, or that pattern, the pattern of that person who is stressing you, which is unjust, unfair, cruel, seductive, mean, deceptive. See, the stress is that stressor is expressing a pattern. And that pattern that gets inside of you through your reaction. See? And then you begin to, then something in you begins to grow around that pattern. And how did that person develop a pattern of stressing people with cruelty or injustice or unfairness or meanness or whatever, neglect or whatever? That pattern got inside of that person through reacting to someone. Okay? So there's that pattern. It's a metaphysical pattern, a psycho-spiritual pattern. It's metaphysical, but it becomes physical as your being, your mind, your emotions, and your body begin to adapt to it. So therefore, you begin to then take on that pattern that was on the outside. Now it's on the inside. And that's how eventually you become what you hate. You've heard that expression before? That's how it happens. Okay? So now you see why reacting to the outside is not good. Especially the reaction of resentment. Okay? That's the one. We all know that being fearful is not good. We know that. We know that getting overexcited is not good. We know that becoming angry is not good. You know that. But resentment is a little emotion that a lot of people think they're entitled to, and they don't think much of it. It gives them a little pleasure to resent someone who did something or said something. See? But that little indulgence, that little emotion, is a reaction to the stressor, and that's how you take in the pattern of what the stressor is into yourself. So you become like what you hated, like what you resented. See how that works? So you see, you've been taught wrongly. You've been taught to react, to get excited. See, to be emotional. See, you've been taught that. Your parents were not good examples. Other people, the movies, the music, books, literature, see, the arts, all teach you to react, to respond, to feel. See. So there's that, and then no one taught you about how to. People have talked about self-discipline and mental distance and aplomb and calmness and don't sweat the small stuff, right? So you've heard that, you've been taught that, or patience, not hating other people. You've heard that. But a lot of times what they tell you is not is not helpful enough, because you've already been reacting. So now you're just trying to put a band-aid over, see, you're trying to cover up what's already happened. So what's better is to learn not to react in the first place. That's where the meditation comes in. Learn not to react in the first place. Now you already have, your whole life you've been reacting. So there's a lot of corruption that's gotten in, and a lot of conditioning, and a lot of stress. So now you're very stressed out because you're reacting to everything, and then you compensate. See, which is a form of adaptation. And then you comfort yourself with food or alcohol or marijuana or drugs or something. See? But what you need to do is learn not to react in the first place. So if you get to meditation, start to practice it properly. Okay? Then you can learn how not to react to new stresses. Then you'll calm down. And then you'll have to look at at the sequelae, or the what's the baggage from the past, the changes that have occurred to you because of your past reactions. Well, then you have to look at them, but without overreacting. See, in the past you couldn't look at them without overreacting to what you saw. You reacted to your own reactions. You resented your own resentment. You hated your own hate. You became angry at your own anger. See what I mean? So now you have to learn not to react, to observe what surfaces. Okay, what you begin to see now without reacting to it. Okay, so it's actually very simple. Once you begin, you will gradually grow in grace, grow in calmness. It's a process of perfecting, which is first an undoing, an unlearning, undoing and unlearning. Okay, which is also the perfecting, because now you're being perfected in light of a new pattern, a heavenly pattern, a good pattern, the one that you should have been unfolding from all along, where you could have been an Einstein or Madame Curie. See, but instead you became like whatever it was on the outside that you hated. Now you must refine that inner pattern and begin to grow from it. My name is Pastor Roland.